My son Michael calls every Sunday morning. Same question, different week. Dad, are you sure you're okay out there by yourself? He means well. They all do. But here's what nobody seems to understand. I'm 93. I've been on my own for nearly 2 decades since Margaret passed. And this is the life I choose. Not the life I'm settling for, the life I actually want. After Margaret's funeral, the suggestions came flooding in. Assisted living brochures appeared on my kitchen counter. My daughter Sarah researched senior communities with active social calendars. Friends from church kept inviting me to join their weekly card games. Everyone was trying to save me from something I didn't need saving from. 18 years later, I'm still in the house I built with my own hands. Still working in my workshop every morning. Still perfectly fine with my own company. And if you're someone who prefers quiet over crowds, who finds peace in solitude rather than noise, then what I'm about to share might change how you see your own life. Because here's the truth most people get wrong. Being alone doesn't equal being lonely. Those are two entirely different experiences, and confusing them is why so many people feel guilty about wanting what they actually need. Let me show you the difference. Loneliness isn't about how many people are around you. It's about whether you feel seen, understood, valued by someone who matters. I learned this the hard way during Margaret's final months. The house was full of visitors, neighbors bringing casseroles, church friends stopping by, our kids taking turns staying overnight. I was surrounded by people every single day. And I've never felt more alone in my life. Not because they didn't care. They did. But nobody wanted to talk about what was actually happening. They wanted to keep things light, keep Margaret's spirits up, avoid the elephant in the room. So we made small talk while my wife was dying, and I felt completely isolated in a crowded room. Compare that to my Tuesday mornings with Frank. Frank runs the hardware store on Main Street. We've known each other for 40 years. Every Tuesday at 7, I walk down there before he opens, and we have coffee in the back office. 20 minutes, maybe 30. We don't talk about much. Weather, local news, whatever project I'm working on in the shop. Last week, we spent 15 minutes discussing the right way to restore a 1940s dining chair. That's it. 30 minutes a week with one person who gets me. And it's enough. More than enough, actually. Because Frank knows I don't need pity or constant check-ins or someone trying to fill my calendar. He knows I'm content. And that 30 minutes of real connection, where I don't have to explain myself or perform being social, means more to me than a month of activities at some senior center. When Margaret was alive, she had dozens of friends. Bridge clubs, book clubs, church groups. She'd come home energized from spending the afternoon with 10 different people. I'd come home from one quiet conversation with Frank and feel the same way. We were just wired differently. Took me 60 years of marriage to stop feeling guilty about that. Here's what I wish someone had told me earlier. Figure out what you actually need for connection, not what other people say you should need. Maybe you need daily phone calls. Maybe you need coffee once a week with someone who knows you. Maybe you need a text message every few days. Those are all legitimate. What's not legitimate is forcing yourself into constant social activity because someone decided that's what healthy aging looks like. I'm not lonely. I'm connected. just on my own terms. And there's nothing wrong with that. The second thing you need when living alone is routine. Not the kind that's forced on you by someone else's schedule, but the kind you build for yourself. When Margaret was alive, our days had natural structure. She'd get up at 7:30. I'd already have coffee made. She'd plan our evenings around her club meetings or dinner with friends. The house moved to her rhythm, and that was fine. That's what you do when you share a life with someone. But after she died, the days just dissolved. I'd wake up and realize it was noon. I'd eat whenever I remembered to eat. I'd sit in my chair, and hours would pass without me noticing. People thought I was depressed. Maybe I was, but mostly I was untethered. There was no shape to the day anymore. So I built one. 6 a.m. every morning, my alarm goes off. I don't need an alarm at my age, but I set one anyway. It's a signal. The day is starting, whether I feel like starting it or not. I get up, put on my work clothes, and go straight to the kitchen. Same routine every time. Grind the beans, boil the water, pour it slow through the filter. Takes about 10 minutes. Those 10 minutes matter more than people realize. By 6:30, I'm in my workshop with my coffee. This is the best part of my day. The shop is quiet, still cool from the night before. I've got whatever project I'm working on laid out on my bench. Right now, it's an oak sideboard from the 1950s that someone was going to throw away. The finish is shot. One leg's wobbly, but the bones are good. I'll have it looking better than new in another week. I work until 9. Then I come in, eat breakfast, read the paper. The rest of the day can go however it wants to go, but those morning hours are mine. Sacred, almost. If I skip them, the whole day feels wrong. Here's what took me too long to understand. Routine isn't boring. Routine is freedom. When you live alone, nobody's going to create structure for you. You have to build it yourself. Otherwise, time just becomes this shapeless thing you're trying to get through. Margaret used to schedule everything. Lunch with Linda on Thursdays. Book club the second Tuesday of every month. Church potluck the first Sunday. I went along with most of it because that's what she needed. But after she was gone, Sarah kept trying to fill my calendar the same way. Senior center activities, community dinners, a watercolor class at the library. I went to one session of that watercolor class, spent 2 hours painting a bowl of fruit that looked like it had been run over by a truck. Came home exhausted from trying to make small talk with people I'd never see again. And I realized I don't need to fill Margaret's calendar. I need to build my own. My routine looks nothing like hers did. No clubs, no committees, no scheduled socializing. Just coffee, workshop, projects that matter to me. Some people might call that lonely. I call it intentional. Every morning, I know exactly what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And that clarity, that sense of purpose, that's what keeps me from drifting. If you're living alone and struggling, ask yourself, do you have a routine that's actually yours? Or are you just trying to fill time with whatever other people think you should be doing? Third thing, and this one's important, you need something that needs you. Not people necessarily, but something alive, something that demands your attention and won't let you disappear into your own head. For me, it's my work. Always has been. When I was building houses, the work needed me. A foundation doesn't level itself. A roof doesn't frame itself. The job required me to show up, pay attention, get it right. That focus kept me grounded for 50 years. These days, The work is smaller, but no less demanding. That oak sideboard I mentioned? It needs me. The joints need regluing. The veneer needs careful sanding, working with the grain, not against it. The finish needs 3 coats minimum, waiting 24 hours between each one. You can't rush it. You can't phone it in. The work demands your full attention, or it shows. Last month, I restored a set of dining chairs from the 1930s. Solid walnut, beautiful craftsmanship, but 60 years of use had worn them down. Loose joints, cracked spindles, finish almost completely gone. I spent 3 weeks on those chairs, disassembling each one, cleaning out the old glue, cutting new spindles on my lathe, reassembling everything square and tight. Then the finishing work, stripping, sanding, applying new stain and lacquer. When I delivered them back to the woman who owned them, she cried. Said her grandmother had sat in those chairs every Sunday dinner for 40 years. Said she thought they were beyond saving. I told her nothing's beyond saving if you're willing to do the work. That's what I mean by something that needs you. Those chairs needed me. Not because I'm special, but because I have the skills, and I showed up. And working on them, I wasn't thinking about being alone, or getting older, or what happens when I can't do this anymore. I was just working, focused, present, useful. My tools need me too. Every Saturday, I sharpen my chisels and plane blades, clean the sawdust out of my table saw, oil the cast iron surfaces to prevent rust, check the tension on my bandsaw blade. This isn't busy work. These tools are how I do what I do. If I let them deteriorate, I can't work. So I maintain them. And maintaining them maintains me. Here's what I've noticed over 18 years alone. The days I don't work are the days I struggle. Not because I'm bored exactly, but because I start thinking too much, ruminating, going over old conversations, old regrets, things I can't change. My mind starts spinning in circles with nothing to grab onto. But when I'm in the shop, with my hands on wood and a clear problem to solve, all that noise stops. I'm not dwelling on the past or worrying about the future. I'm just here, now, doing work that matters to someone. Even if that someone is just me. You don't need a workshop to have this. Maybe it's a garden that needs tending. Maybe it's volunteer work that expects you to show up. Maybe it's learning something new that demands practice. The point is having something outside yourself that pulls you forward instead of letting you drift backward. Find something that needs you. Then show up for it. Every day, if you can. Fourth tip, and this one goes against everything people will tell you. Be selective about who you spend time with. When you live alone, your energy for socializing is limited. You can't waste it on people who drain you or relationships that feel like obligations. After Margaret died, well-meaning people kept trying to expand my social circle. Join the senior center, they said. You'll meet people, go to the community lunches, sign up for the men's breakfast at church. As if the solution to losing my wife was replacing her with a dozen acquaintances I'd have to make small talk with. I tried it once. The senior center had a Friday afternoon gathering. Cards, coffee, conversation. I walked in and immediately felt like I was supposed to perform. Be grateful. Be engaged. Prove I wasn't depressed or deteriorating. An older woman named Gladys cornered me for 20 minutes about her grandchildren's accomplishments. A man named Earl wanted to debate politics. Someone else kept asking if I needed a ride to church, assuming I couldn't drive myself. I left after 45 minutes with a headache and no interest in going back. That's not connection. That's social endurance training. Compare that to Frank and Jim. 2 people. That's my entire circle, and it's exactly the right size. Frank, I've already told you about. Tuesday morning coffee, hardware store back office, 40 years of knowing each other. We don't need to explain ourselves or catch up on life updates. We just are. That's the kind of friendship that only comes from decades of showing up for the small moments. Jim's different, but equally important. I met him at church about 10 years ago. He's 78. Lost his wife around the same time I lost Margaret. We sit in the same pew every Sunday, 3 rows from the back on the left side. After service, we stand in the parking lot for 10 or 15 minutes. Talk about the sermon, the weather, whatever project I'm working on, or whatever Jim's reading. Then we go home. That's it. No phone calls during the week. No dinner invitations. No pressure to be more than what we are, which is 2 men who understand what it's like to sit alone in a house that used to hold 2 people. Last winter, Jim didn't show up for 3 Sundays in a row. I drove to his house after church the 4th Sunday. He'd had a bad fall, hurt his hip, been too embarrassed to ask for help. I brought him groceries that week and the next. Drove him to his doctor's appointment. He didn't thank me profusely or make a big deal out of it. He just said, I'd do the same. And I know he would. That's real friendship. Not the performative kind where you're constantly checking in and asking how someone's doing. The quiet kind where you just show up when it matters. Here's what I wish more men understood. You don't need a lot of friends. You need the right friends. People who get you, who don't need you to be different than you are, who understand that some of us are built for depth rather than breadth. Margaret had 15 people she called close friends. I'm not built that way. Never have been. 2 is my number. Maybe yours is 3 or 4, or even 1. That's fine. What's not fine is forcing yourself into social situations that leave you exhausted and empty just because someone said you need to get out more. Quality matters more than quantity. One conversation with Frank about dovetail joints means more to me than an hour of chit-chat with strangers. 15 minutes with Jim in a church parking lot gives me more peace than a whole afternoon at some organized activity. If you're an introvert, give yourself permission to have a small circle. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing sad about that. Some of us need deep water, not shallow streams. We need a few people who really know us, not a crowd of people who know our name. I have 2 friends. That's not loneliness. That's intentionality. And it's more than enough. 5th and most important tip, you have to actually like yourself. Because when you live alone, you're stuck with yourself all the time. If you can't stand your own company, living alone is going to be miserable. If you can enjoy your own company, it's one of the best things you'll ever do. This took me the longest to learn. For most of my marriage, I thought something was wrong with me. Margaret would come home energized from spending an afternoon with her book club. I'd come home from a job site where I'd barely spoken to anyone all day and feel perfectly content. She'd want to go to dinner parties on weekends. I'd want to stay home and work on a project in the shop. She'd make plans with 3 different couples in a single week. I'd be exhausted just hearing about it. I spent years thinking I was the problem. Too quiet, too withdrawn, not social enough. Margaret never said that directly, but I said it to myself plenty. Why couldn't I be more like her? Why didn't I want what she wanted? What was wrong with me that I preferred sand in a cabinet to going to someone's retirement party? Took me until my 70s to realize nothing was wrong with me. We were just different people. She needed conversation and activity and a full social calendar to feel alive. I needed quiet and focus and work I could lose myself in. Neither way was better. Neither way was broken. Just different. After she died, that difference became a problem for everyone else. My kids wanted me to fill Margaret's schedule, join her clubs, go to her lunches, keep her friendships alive. As if I could just slip into her life and keep living it. As if who I was didn't matter, as long as I was staying busy and social. I tried for about 6 months, went to a few things, smiled and nodded, and felt like I was wearing someone else's clothes. Then one Saturday, I was supposed to go to a potluck at church. I'd even made a casserole the night before. But that morning, I looked at that casserole sitting in my refrigerator and thought, I don't want to go. I don't want to make small talk for 3 hours. I don't want to explain to people I barely know that I'm doing fine. Really, I'm managing. So I didn't go. I stayed home, worked in my shop all morning, had a sandwich for lunch, read a book in the afternoon, went to bed that night feeling more like myself than I had in months, and I realized, this is who I am. I'm a man who likes quiet, who likes working with his hands, who's perfectly content spending Saturday alone in his workshop rather than in a church basement making conversation. That's not sad. That's not lonely. That's just me. The hardest part about living alone isn't the solitude. It's believing that choosing solitude is legitimate, that you're not failing at life just because you'd rather be alone than with people, that preferring your own company doesn't make you broken or cold or antisocial. I like who I am. Took me 93 years to say that without qualification, but I can say it now. I like my quiet mornings. I like my workshop and my tools and my projects. I like my coffee with Frank and my parking lot conversations with Jim. I like reading before bed and eating dinner at my own table and not having to coordinate my schedule with anyone. Some people are built for crowds. I'm built for this, for the steady rhythm of a solitary life, for deep focus instead of constant stimulation, for relationships that are real instead of numerous. Margaret used to say I was too much in my own head. Maybe I am, but my head's not a bad place to be anymore. Not because I've become someone different, but because I've finally stopped apologizing for being who I've always been. If you can't enjoy your own company, work on that first. Everything else follows from there. I need to say something about missing people, because I think this confuses a lot of folks. Missing someone and being lonely are not the same thing, not even close. And understanding that difference changed everything for me. Margaret's chair is still in the living room. Same spot it's been in for 40 years, right by the window where she liked to read. I haven't moved it, haven't sat in it. It's her chair. Some people might say that's unhealthy, that I'm stuck in the past or can't let go. Those people don't understand. I miss Margaret every single day. 18 years later, I still turn to tell her something before I remember she's not there. I still think about what she'd say when I'm working through a problem. I still reach for her side of the bed in the middle of the night sometimes and find it empty. That ache doesn't go away. I don't want it to go away. But that ache isn't loneliness. Loneliness is feeling disconnected from life, like you're watching everyone else exist while you're just going through motions. Missing Margaret is different. It's carrying someone with you, keeping them alive in how you think and what you remember, and the person you became because they were in your life. Here's what took me years to understand. I can miss Margaret and still have a full life. Those two things aren't opposites. They coexist. I can sit in my workshop feeling completely content with my own company and still wish she was in the house making coffee. I can be grateful for the quiet and the solitude and the freedom to live on my own terms and still wish I could tell her about the chairs I restored last week. People kept telling me after she died that I needed to move on, as if grief has an expiration date, as if missing your wife of 62 years is something you're supposed to get over like a cold. They meant well, but they were wrong. You don't move on from people who mattered. You move forward with them. Every morning when I make coffee, I make it the way Margaret taught me. She was particular about coffee. Good beans, fresh ground, water just off the boil. I'd have been content with instant coffee my whole life, but she insisted there was a right way to do it. So that's what I do. Not because I'm stuck in the past, but because she was right. The coffee's better this way. And making it connects me to her. That's not loneliness. That's love continuing in a different form. The hardest thing about losing Margaret wasn't learning to cook for myself, or do my own laundry, or manage the house alone. I figured all that out. The hardest thing was giving myself permission to be happy without her, to enjoy my mornings in the shop, to appreciate the quiet, to build a life that looked nothing like the one we had together, and feel okay about that. For a long time, being content felt like betrayal. Like I was supposed to be miserable to prove I loved her. Like enjoying my own company meant I didn't miss her enough. But that's not how it works. Margaret wouldn't have wanted me spending the last years of my life in misery just to honor her memory. She'd have told me to get on with it, to build something good with whatever time I have left. So, that's what I'm doing. I'm living a life she'd recognize in some ways, and wouldn't recognize in others. I'm quiet where she was social. I'm solitary where she was connected to everyone. But I'm content, and I'm carrying her with me while I do it. There's an empty chair in my living room that's never going to be filled. And there's a full workshop where I spend my mornings doing work that matters to me. Both things are true. Both things can be true. That's not contradiction. That's life after loss. And it's better than most people think it can be. So here's what I want you to hear. Especially if you're a man living alone and wondering if something's wrong with you. Because you're not miserable about it. There's nothing wrong with you. Some of us are built for solitude. And that's not the same thing as isolation. Isolation is being cut off from life, disconnected from people, withdrawn in a way that's about fear or pain or given up. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is choosing a quiet life, because that's what fits who you are. That's intentional solitude. And there's a world of difference between the two. My son Michael still worries. Every Sunday, same conversation. Dad, are you sure you're okay out there? And every Sunday I tell him the same thing. I'm not just okay. I'm exactly where I want to be. But I understand why he worries. The world has decided that men my age living alone are supposed to be tragic figures. Lonely old widowers wasting away in empty houses, waiting for someone to rescue them from themselves. That's not me. That's never been me. And if it's not you either, I need you to stop apologizing for it. I'm not isolated. I have Frank and Jim. I have my Tuesday coffee and my Sunday parking lot conversations. I have my work and my routine and my mornings in the shop. I have a life that's quiet and focused and entirely my own. Some people look at that and see loneliness. I look at it and see contentment. For too many years, I let other people's definitions of a good life make me feel deficient. Margaret's friends would talk about all their social activities, and I'd feel guilty for not wanting the same thing. My kids would suggest I join groups or attend events, and I'd feel like I was disappointing them by preferring to stay home. Even strangers at church would look at me with pity, like being alone was obviously something I was suffering through rather than choosing. But I'm 93 years old, and I finally figured something out. Different isn't deficient. Quiet isn't sad. Solitary isn't the same as lonely. I'm not broken because I'd rather spend Saturday morning restoring a chair than attending a pancake breakfast with 50 people I don't know. Some men need constant activity and full social calendars to feel alive. That's fine. That's who they are. But some of us need the opposite. We need quiet mornings and focused work and relationships that go deep instead of wide. We need time alone to think and create and just exist without performing for anyone. That's not a flaw. That's not something to fix. That's just how we're built. If you're one of those men, I'm giving you permission to stop fighting it. Stop forcing yourself into social situations that drain you. Stop feeling guilty for preferring your own company. Stop apologizing for living a life that looks different from what everyone says you should want. You're not lonely just because you're alone. You're not isolated just because you're selective about people. You're not sad just because you're quiet. Those are three completely different things. And confusing them is why so many people spend their lives uncomfortable in their own skin. I've lived alone for 18 years. I'm not lonely. I've never been lonely. I'm content. I'm purposeful. I'm exactly who I've always been, just without apologizing for it anymore. That's my final piece of advice. Give yourself permission to be who you actually are. Not who your family thinks you should be. Not who society says a man your age is supposed to be. Just you. Honestly, unapologetically, you. There's nothing wrong with quiet. There's nothing sad about solitude. And there's nothing lonely about a life that's intentionally, carefully, contentedly your own. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got a sideboard waiting in the shop. And that's exactly where I want to be.